Good morning, and I want to thank you for your participation today. Immediately after this briefing at 10 a.m., we will have a hearing in room 437 to learn what progress our state university systems are making toward compliance with two important legal obligations: the Federal Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act of 1990, known as NAGPRA, and NAGPRA's California's counterpart, CalNAGPRA, that became law in 2001. The two laws created requirements for protecting Native American remains and returning them to the appropriate tribes so they could have a final resting place for their ancestors. It is offensive that we must continue to demand that this is a basic human need and right. That need and right does not fade with time, the obligation to those who came before us, and does not diminish. We continue to strive to make sure that we have a final resting place for our ancestors of California's first people. California tribes will not stop in our quest to ensure the return of our ancestors or to see that universities and other public institutions do the right thing and be able to repatriate the remains of our ancestors. All nations, all people seek to carry out this sacred duty, but Native Americans have long been denied the ability to inter the remains of those loved ones of ancestors of our people. Lack of funding, insufficient staffing, or changes in personnel are things that we will start to hear about in the hearing, but they can't be a deterrent to make sure that those remains come back to the rightful people. The tribes and the legislature, as well as the administration, are committed to holding our universities accountable, and it is why the legislature has requested 3 audits since 2019. At our hearing, I hope to learn more on the progress from the Cal State University system and the UCs and how they have made progress in returning remains to the tribes of the state of California and throughout the United States. In the 34 years since NAGPRA's passage and the 23 years since CalNAGPRA was approved, California tribes have seen little movement to meet inventory deadlines, much less the return of our ancestors and human remains. Last year, I introduced AB 389 that was signed into law. That required the Cal State universities to undertake a number of steps to ensure that systems in making progress on returning the human remains and artifacts of our ancestors. One requirement of AB 389 is that Cal State University submit an annual report on its repatriation progress by the end of this year, which is why we are holding an oversight hearing today, and annually thereafter. We will continue to monitor and press for an end to this shameful decades-long delay of remains back to our ancestors. With me today are several tribal leaders that will speak. First, we will bring up to the podium Chairman of the Morongo Tribal Government, Chairman Charles Martin.
Chairman Ramos, Honorable Chairman Ramos, I would like to thank again. My name is Charles Martin. I'm Chairman for the Morongo Band of Mission Indians. It is an honor to be here with the tribal leaders from the various communities throughout the state of California. This is about our ancestors' remains and some artifacts, in working with the UC system to return those remains back to our communities where they can find their final resting place. This is going to take a lot of work. We've made a lot of progress, but there, as the Chairman Ramos has mentioned, there is still much work to be done, and we come today with the hopes that we can, through dialogue, come to real solutions in terms of working with the UCs to bring those ultimately a solution to this problem. So I just want to thank you for Chairman Ramos in that he is doing something that will help ameliorate and create a system where we all work together. And this is something that not only applies to the tribes in California, but across the state. There are 500 recognized tribes. This is something that exists in each one of these states where there tribal communities, and those folks want to return the remains of their ancestors back to a final resting home also. So thank you for the time that the chairman and his members will be giving us today, and it is much appreciated and has taken a long time to get here. So thank you, Chairman Ramos.
Thank you, Chairman Martin. And knowing that areas that need to be heard throughout the whole state of California, we have with us Chairman Potter, Chairman of the Redding Rancheria Tribal Government.
Thank you, Honorable Assembly Member Ramos. Our tribal nation would like to thank you for putting these things forward and holding the USC and the UC, CSU and UC's feet to the fire. It shouldn't have had to take this long to get our remains back. I remember when those first lists came out, and we've been working and working, but it's getting better. I would like to thank UC Berkeley. They just recently returned some of our remains, and we're going to be reburying them next week. And I will continue to wear black when we come to these things to speak of our loved ones, because we're in mourning. We were in mourning until every one of our people get home. We have to sing those songs that we had to create because we never had songs of reburial. We believed once our people were put to rest, they were put to rest, and we never understood a people that could be so disrespectful to remove our loved ones. For what reason, I don't know. Because like I always say, if you want to study an Indian, I'm right here, and you could always study me. I'm the same as our original people, and every tribe in California are the same people. And so if they want answers, just talk to us. We'll give you those answers. If you want to know something about us, talk to us. But release our people. Get them off those shelves. That's such a sterile environment. And when you go there, you hear the spirits of those people crying and asking to come home. And it's mingled because there's so many different languages and you really can't get a clear answer. But you hear the hurt of those people coming from those shelves. And I never imagined that I would have to be reburying people that I don't even know, but I have a connection to them. And one day, I hope soon, very soon, that we have those shelves cleared. And it's not just the bones of our ancestors, it's every item. Because traditionally, when our people passed away, we would destroy those baskets to release the spirit of the weavers and stuff. So even those things are funerary because those people no longer are here. So I want to thank the CSU and UC system for starting to pick up the pace. And I believe, you know, it takes money to do a lot of things, but it should just take your heart. You know, we should be able to show up, sign the paperwork, and have them released. It don't cost that much to do that. So thank you, and thank you once again, Assemblymember Ramos.
Thank you so much for that. And continuing to share the voices of the tribal community, we have with us Chairman Siskiyou, who's the chairman of the Tachi Yoka Tribal Government.
Thank you, Assemblymember Ramos. Thank you for bringing this issue to light. We see before you as a humble servant of my people. I'm here representing Tachi tribe, and I'm here representing our elders because they can't speak for themselves. And it's a shame that, you know, when we speak about this with our young ones, that they're baffled that a crime is being committed openly and publicly with our ancestors sitting on the shelf and able to be numbered and being treated with the lack of respect. That's the one thing you'll hear in the testimonies today is the word respect or lack thereof. It's because these people, that's, you know, it's disheartening to have our ancestors sit there and being studied. You know, they carry our values, they carry our stories, and they cry for help. That's why we're in this position. We stand on the shoulders of our ancestors, and we're going to sit there and be committed to make sure that they come here home and in peace and be buried on their homelands with the honor and respect that they deserve. So we thank the legislators and especially Assemblymember Ramos for giving us the time and giving us the platform to sit here and speak to all of you and bring this to light that this is a very important issue that has long been ignored. And we thank you everyone for being in attendance here today, and we look forward to the testimonies as well. So Thank you again.
Well, thank you so much for that. Continuing on the voices of the tribal people, we have with us Catalina Chacon, council member of the Pechanga tribal government.
Mayayam, Notun Catalina Chacon, Pechangayam. Good morning, everybody. My name is Catalina Chacon, and I'm from the Pechanga Band of Indians. It's important to keep these issues in front of the legislature and in front of the people of California. Keeping the remains of our ancestors is inconsistent with the values of the UC, CSU, and the state of California. We appreciate Assemblyman Ramos's holding today's hearing. Here in California, home to the most federally recognized tribal governments in the country, the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, NAGPRA, has proven inadequate and ineffective when it comes to research universities like the University of California and the California State University. NAGPRA requires federally funded museums and universities to repatriate ancestral remains and cultural items to federally recognized tribes. Unfortunately, the UC and CSU have a well-documented and chronic history of noncompliance with these federal and state laws designed to bring our ancestors home. Although more than 30 years have passed since NAGPRA was enacted, the state auditor recently found that more than half of the CSU campuses have not returned any remains or cultural items to the tribes. Our tribal ancestors and cultural items are still seen as specimens to many researchers instead of the human beings with the right to a final, dignified place of rest. In spite of this painful and traumatic past, laws like AB 2836 and AB 389 give us hope. Hope for the return of our ancestors to their rightful families and communities, and hope for the day when our grandchildren will not have to undertake this heavy and traumatic work. Thank you for letting me speak today. Thank you, Assemblyman Ramos.
Well, thank you so much for the testimony from tribal leaders here throughout the state. We also can't do this alone, so we need the support of our colleagues in the legislature. And with us today is Assemblymember Don Addis.
Well, thank you. I'm Assemblymember Donna Addis, and a huge thank you to Assemblymember Ramos for the invite today and to the tribal leaders standing here. Clearly, it is time to hear tribal voices. And while we have made great gains in California, without the voices of the folks here today and without the leadership of Assemblymember Ramos, we would not have come as far as we have. But it is time to do more. And so I represent 200 miles of coastline, which is home to 2 CSUs and adjacent to 2 UCs and missions, and is home to several Native American tribal nations. I'm here today as chair of the California Legislative Central Coast Caucus, as well as a member of the Native American Caucus. And I want to say thank you to Assemblymember Ramos for starting the Native American Caucus and opening up to all people in the legislature and all allies, because it's our charge to do the necessary work of repatriation. And I'm also a former teacher, and so I understand deeply how people want to educate and how inappropriate and wrong it is that we use other people's cultures and histories in the way that we have across California to impart education. There has been a very problematic history between institutions of higher education and tribal artifacts and indigenous remains. It does stem from colonialism, from ethnocentrism, and even the horrible movement of eugenics. And for generations of academia, there has existed a fascination and deliberate exoticization, making it exotic, and dehumanization of Native peoples that has often resulted in forgetting how Native remains ultimately belong to families and belong to loved ones, as you're hearing today. So we are proud that in recent decades, the United States and California have made significant steps to reconcile this horrible treatment and this horrible past. And one of these has been through NAGPRA that you've heard about today. So I'm grateful that our institutions are beginning the process, but I think it's incredibly important that we don't stop there, that we don't use these beginnings and say that we've done enough, that we have to continue and Remains have to go home. And so thank you, Assembly Member, and thank you to the leaders that are here today and that'll be at the hearing.
Well, thank you so much for that and the discussions that will take place at 10 a.m. In room 437 as we hear updates and also further voices of Indian country and from the auditor to find out the progress of where we're at, as well as the UCs and Cal State University, so that will show us and tell us the progress that they've made. And reiterating what Assemblymember Addis said, the remains of our people aren't something to be held on a shelf as a trophy. These are people that need to be reburied with loved ones in a proper reburial. It's time that we continue the movement and the progress to get these remains back to the rightful people here in the state of California and across the nation. To close us out, I've asked Chairman Potter to say a prayer.
So I'm going to do a personal family prayer that was passed down to me from my grandmother. It calls for protection from all four directions, and I'm going to do that prayer now. Hui bohemem oilbas oet hamchunu kuidam yamara hattake CSU and UC system. Nor San Palm, Oilbas, Utham Chinukudam Yamara Hattake, CSU and UC system. Nam, San Shushuli, Oilbas, Utham Chinukudam Yamara Hattake, CSU and UC system. Way, Bolium Puyat, Oilbas, Utham Chinukudam Yamara Hattake. CSU and UC system. So thank you. So I prayed to the sacred boundaries within my country. And the reason why I included the CSU and UC system is you guys are the ones that have those spirits. And hopefully this will affect your heart and allow you to see and feel our hearts and make that connection with us and think more like a tribal person and have a better understanding. And also because those spirits you hold, I don't want them to attach themselves to you and follow you home. You may have children, and that's how those things end up in your house when you keep those things alive and don't allow them to rest. So I ask for protection for your systems. Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here today, and especially sharing the voices of tribal people, and Assemblymember Addis for being here. If there's any questions that any might have. Emily?
Earlier, there was discussion that there was a reference to cost of the year. I'm curious if that's been a concern that tribes have faced in the past year of the financial burden of trying to get ancestors home.
I think there's been, from the beginning of AB 389, there has been the discussion on the Cal State and the UC's arena as far as cost to comply. However, these laws have been in place for over 20-something years. So we believe that if we're going to get an update today, that it came out from a statewide policy to start moving forward with repatriation as a priority, that funding would follow that from the system itself. We're going to hear more about that today. But certainly on the side of the tribal aspect, we know that we've been moving forward and getting names on those NAGPRA boards in 389. I'm not sure if any other tribal leaders want to address the question.
On the issue of funding, earlier I was speaking with Catalina. That's something that we know that exists. To the extent that we can help out, I mean, Morongo personally has a tribal historic preservation board or office. It's Tribal Historic Preservation Office. So we are committed to through that department to assisting the CSUs in that process. Again, it's the collaborative effort that we would like to focus on with regards to money for the CSUs. I think that that is something the senator and the assembly member will have to have conversations with the CSUs. We can't address that, but I know that from a Tribal Historic Preservation Office, we do allocate funding to towards this endeavor.
Thank you. Any others? No? Well, thank you for attending. And the hearing will be at 10 a.m. in room 437, and we'll dive deeper into some of these issues that were brought up here today. Thank you so much.